What if the devil wrote the Bible?
The devil didn't write the Bible? Oh my goodness, I can't believe you said that out.
I'm just asking.
Hey, it is the atheist
I feel like I need to put my
experience,
phone down because the lightning might come right now. No, he didn't.
I think it's a reasonable question. How do you know that there wasn't malicious intent from day one?
Because there's actual historical evidence when they go back to research in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. When they go back and they research that, there is historical evidence of eyewitness accounts and things written down within 3 to 5 years after historians, not theologians, no one with a religious, invested in this. Someone who just studies history can go back and say, this is when we think he died, and these accounts were written just
I'm asking a little different question. They say that the Bible's inspired by God, right? What if the Bible's inspired by the devil?
Wasn't.
But what evidence
if you read it, you'll know it.
But no, I mean, it's a book.
Devil's a tricky guy. I mean, how are you supposed to know this?
Well, I find it funny that you believe in the devil, but
I don't believe in the devil. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Okay, you're giving me a trick question.
No,
okay.
No, it's
about
honestly.
No, it's getting at this notion of faith, and you have this notion of faith, and if you don't back it up by evidence, how can you possibly trust it?
The evidence is that the devil's not going to write a book and tell you anything. The evidence of the devil is on earth right now.
Okay.
But
the basis remains. You're putting faith in a book, essentially, the Bible.
Scripture.
What evidence do you have that is correct outside of your own beliefs, which could be faulty?
Because historians have actually proven that when the apostles wrote in the New Testament, they actually can go back and trace amongst other people that have written accounts that aren't even in the Bible, just outside people back through history. There's actually, I don't even know if people know this, but there's actually something referred to as the quote-unquote the Q, where they say, oh, there's additional information that Jesus said, and all it is sayings. I mean, the Bible is a book just like any other book.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all relevant to the fact that these men, but back then they said if you studied those type of people, that whole age, that they did not just write down these crazy, wild stories just to do it.
And I haven't actually seen any of those other books or evidence. I mean, I've heard about them, but I've never actually...
I just read books based on gentlemen saying that, well, I've researched this book, and, of course, I haven't had a chance to go pick them up and read them either, but... Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the one or two very, very fractured accounts that I have heard of Jesus outside of the Bible, the main one being Josephus, is basically that's been, pretty much all theologians and historians have said, no, that's completely bunk. Because it's written in a different style, it's kind of just shoved in the middle of another passage, and just for various reasons, it's bunk. I haven't heard of any evidences outside of the Bible of any of the stories in there, save the fact that, Israel exists. I mean, basic things like that. But again, if you want to go into things like that, well Alice in Wonderland talks about it.
Yeah, the people who wrote the Bible believed what they saw. But getting back to my point, how do we know that they weren't tricked? Just because the story's 2,000 years old doesn't necessarily, and the person writing the story believes it's true, doesn't necessarily mean that it's fact, right?
Well, if someone,
we have the Iliad. That's fiction. That was at least as old as the Bible.
If you and I were standing on a corner and we both saw someone shot, and the police go to take our report, you're going to give a different account than I'm going to give, just because you're human and I'm human, and when people, even though you see the exact same thing, you interpret it a different way.
Yeah, but we're talking about, what about a supernatural deity that can set up the shooting and make us believe things?
Well, no.
Why not?
Why would a supernatural deity?
Satan's supposed to be pretty powerful guy.
Well, okay, that's different. I mean, if he were to do something terrible like that, then fine. But I mean, my point to that is that people, the Bible God spoke to people like Moses and Abraham, and these are their accounts that were written down in a timely manner and have been passed down. Just like my grandmother gave me, her diary that she had when she was a little girl, and she was born in 1904. It's been passed down for generations.
You're getting back down to the fact that the whole thread here is faith, and the key question is how do you know whether it's good or bad?
You mean the Bible?
Yeah.
Being it?
You're saying that there's discrepancies in the different stories and stuff because they're written by people. How do you decide that this is something that was written by a person, and where it says that insolent kids should be stoned? People. Yeah, but again, it goes back to the choice of how do you decide when the Bible says that insolent kids should be stoned, that you decide that doesn't really apply, versus love thy neighbor, that does apply. How are you making decisions in the Bible to say this verse is true and good and follow it, this one not so much?
Well, because in some of the stoning, and when God had most of his wrath, which was in the Old Testament, because at that point there was no, as you know, Jesus was not, he hadn't won his time yet.
Yeah, he had sacrificed goats then.
He would have, stories of how they, if you were an adulterer, if I went and cheated on my husband, I would be stoned to death. Well, of course, we don't do that nowadays, but that was the custom back then. There again, that's actually more evidence to show you that these stories were taken down at a certain time in history when things were taking place and they had certain customs. That doesn't make what the meaning of it is not accurate and not purposeful.
So you're saying basically God changed his mind?
No, he didn't change his mind. I'm just saying that if I wrote a story today,
early on he said that if you do something bad, you have to be stoned or you have to sacrifice a goat to make me happy again. Now he's just saying that, well, forget all that other stuff before.
Things changed once Jesus came down and was sent as our Savior. Things weren't the same way as they were in the Old Testament. That's why we have the New Testament.
What happened to people in the Old Testament?
It depends.
Who didn't have the option of Jesus?
It didn't depend. God took up, a lot of people just took them up. They had no death. They actually just went to heaven. And then others perished.
Okay. All right.
I didn't mean to get off on all these tangents. I just wanted you guys to be able to know that, because the first 3 phone calls before me just weren't helping me out at all. I don't know who those people were. But I just, wanted to make the point that, please try not to confuse religion with Christianity.
Well, Christianity is a religion.
Yeah, it is a religion.
One of many religions.
But not all religions mean they're Christian.
Of course.
That's my difference.
Of course
and so and to people that don't know that, and you just say religion or the religious, then they go and flip the channel to E! Entertainment and see somebody who's a Scientologist. And, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going up into space whenever we all die. It's going to be great. You want to come? That's a religion. They're nonprofit. They get same perks as I, get at our church. But that doesn't make them Christian. Yeah. That was my point.
Well, yeah, we understand that there are definitely, obviously, other religions out there. Mm-hmm. We just don't see any religion offering any more evidence that it exists and it is the true way than any other religion.
Well, and again,
Christianity gets put in the same bucket as other forms of Christianity.
I can see why you would say that, and my only comment to that, which is not a concrete evidence, I cannot show you written proof. My only belief is that I have faith in that when that day comes and the end of the times come, which God will choose, we won't. And when that happens, then at that point everybody will be like, "Oh yeah, she was right."
Yeah. But again, it's that whole going back to faith thing that we find kind of scary.
Yeah, and it is very scary
because it leads to this, rapture stuff and this.
Andrea
Yates, the world to make Jesus come back.
You know what? And and no one can make him come back. I mean, he'll come back when it's his time.
But going back to the faith thing, I mean, Andrea Yates had faith. And that's kind of the scary part of it all.
But that doesn't mean that she was correct in her faith, and that doesn't mean that she was truly a Christian.
That's true. But unless you have something to base your faith on, some kind of real evidence and solid, then
it's a slippery slope.
Then it's a very scary thing.
And I think he meant it for it to be that way. That's why we don't have any black and white.
So he meant for Andrea Yates.
I think that's why we have a lot of religious wars.
The previous comment that you made when you said that we don't have anything to actually see it when you want to base your faith on something. I can go base my faith on my dog if I want to and think that he's God. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not crazy. And I mean,
there is a connection there, God and dog, flip it around.
No.
I'm teasing you a little bit.
They're laying right here listening.
I'm teasing you a little bit, sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't mind. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, I'm sure you guys have to spend a lot against, people that are really crazy, Southern Baptist kind of, Christians who really want to go after you and destroy what you're saying. And I think you're right. I mean, we're supposed to question things. That's why the thoughts wouldn't pop in our head if it wasn't supposed to happen. It's just those who make the decision to, follow Christ and go, then, my favorite thing to tell people when they ask me is that if you're right, I lose nothing. But if I'm right, what do you lose?
Good old Pascal's wager.
Yeah, that's
we lose the planet, and that was the subject of that.
And also every religion typically has its idea.
See, when that happens, I won't be here, so that won't really concern me.
But that's the scary thing, though.
We care about the future as atheists.
But again, Pascal's wager. You brought up a good one. There are other religions out there that say you should believe them. God says don't believe any other religions.
Right, and all the other religions are false.
So how do you say that this one's right and that one's wrong? I could say that you will get eternal reward if you pay me $25 every single week.
Because the difference is that...
And you have no evidence, nothing to back it up, so just in case, you should pay me.
I think the difference is that religion is man-created. Man-created religion. He created...
We agree.
Lutheran. He created Baptist. He created Catholic. Whatever you want to... Whatever denomination you happen to be. But being a Christian is in the Bible. And I believe what's in the Bible.
Man created the Bible, too.
Yeah.
Per the fact that they either walked with Jesus in the New Testament and wrote down what they were told, or in the Old Testament, they wrote down what they saw and were told by God.
Behold, I come quickly, Jesus said, right?
Okay.
So somebody's a liar in all this. Jesus didn't come quickly. We're running out of time.
I don't want to keep you guys on the phone anymore. I just appreciate you kind of battling it out here with me for a little bit.
I really appreciate your call.
You bring up some very, very interesting points, and I personally like to read things that are anti-Christian as much as I do Christian, because I like to always have a comeback for everything. So.
Exactly. Thinking about things is always good.
It's good for everyone.
Thank you very much for calling.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When it comes to bullshit, big time, major league bullshit, you have to stand in awe of the all-time champion of false promises and exaggerated claims, religion. No contest. No contest.